The top stories tonight in Y News. The IATF against COVID-19 now permits people aged 15 to 65 to leave their houses. Also, traveling to and from general community quarantine and modified general community quarantine areas is now allowed.
Said remdesivir from its Solidarity trial arm of treatments for COVID-19. In the Philippines, the health department stops using the antiviral drug in trials on coronavirus patients.
Senate President Vicente Sotto III requests House Speaker Lord Alan J. Velasco to transmit the 2021 General Appropriations Bill on October 28. Meanwhile, the lower house of Congress will be able to submit to the Senate the copy of the proposed 2021 national budget by that day. Public utility bus passengers complain over the new bus rerouting scheme for routes on EDSA Quezon Avenue. The Metropolitan Manila Development Authority, however, appeals for the passengers' patience.
France reimposes a state of health emergency and introduces curfews as a consequence of a sudden and spectacular acceleration in the spread of the coronavirus. Meanwhile, Australia will fund up to 500,000 Australian dollars to eligible businesses in the Philippines, along with 4 other Pacific countries.
And the Wishfuls returns on stage for a virtual concert on October 25th. Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Friday, October 16, 2020. I am Harleen Delgado.
Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the country and in other parts of the world. I'm Angelo Castro III.
We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts and our website, untvweb.com. I am William Theo.
If before, Filipinos as young as 15 years old and as old as 65 years old could not enjoy the outdoors, now they are allowed to do so. Also, traveling to and from general community quarantine and modified general community quarantine areas is now a go. Here's why from Rosalie Cos.
Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque announced today the formal approval of the Interagency Task Force Against COVID-19 of the Economic Cluster's recommendation to expand the age group to go outdoors. This is according to IATF Resolution Number 79. The stay-at-home restrictions have been implemented on people aged 20 and below and 60 above except for access to essential goods and services. But now, people between 15 and 65 years old are permitted out of their homes. However, local government units may impose a higher age limit for minors depending on the COVID-19 situation in their jurisdictions.
So pwede na pong lumabas ang mga minors from 15 to 65 years of age. Pero ang mga local government units po, pwede magtakda ng mas mataas o mas matandang edad para po sa mga menor de edad. So that is without prejudice to the local LGUs to increase the age of minors who may go out.
The IATF also permits the interzonal movement of non-authorized persons outside of residence between areas placed under general community quarantine or modified general community quarantine. However, this is subject to the reasonable regulations imposed by the concerned local government units.
Pinayagan na po ng ating IATF ang interzonal travel, maski po yung mga non-appers between GCQ and MGCQ areas. At pinapayagan po rin ang travel between MGCQ papunta po dun sa madedeklarang mga new normal.
The IATF also lifted the restrictions on non-essential outbound travel of Filipinos effective October 21, 2020. They may leave the country but they should have confirmed round-trip tickets and adequate travel and health insurance for those traveling on tourist visas. Execute an immigration declaration acknowledging the risk involved in travel and secure a negative antigen test result taken within 24 hours before departure. Outbound Filipino travelers should follow the guidelines of the National Task Force for Returning Overseas Filipinos. As another part of further reopening the economy, business establishments and malls may hold activities to spur consumer and economic activities.
Ang mga establishments at mga malls may hold activities para magkaroon ng economic o business activity. Ito po yung mga sales, no? Pero subject po ito sa DTI guidelines in the operation of malls and shopping malls.
Rosa Licoz, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The World Health Organization has delisted remdesivir from its Solidarity trial arm of treatments for COVID-19. Our health correspondent Aiko Miguel explains why.
The World Health Organization's study shows that antiviral drug remdesivir has little or no effect on mortality of hospitalized COVID-19 patients in more than 30 countries who are part of the Solidarity trial. Remdesivir is an off-label drug used for Ebola virus. This is why the global platform of the Solidarity trial is ready to rapidly evaluate promising new treatment options, with nearly 500 hospitals open as trial sites. Now the Philippines is also stopping the use of remdesivir.
The design of the protocol is open, no? It's an open study. Ibig sabihin, kapag dumating tayo dun sa point na ang isang gamot ay matagpuan, no, o magpapagbigay ng ebidensya base dun sa mga nakukuha nating resulta sa mga pasyenteng binibigyan nito na hindi siya effective, no, at saka nakakapagbigay siya ng more harm than good, pwedeng itigil ang mga gamot na yan, no, during the course of the trial.
It can be noted the WHO halted the use of hydroxychloroquine and lopinavir-ritonavir interferon in June and July after adverse effects were observed. It was also found out that they have no efficacy in improving a coronavirus patient's condition. Based on a DOH report as of September 7, 2020, more than 1,000 severe COVID-19 patients in 24 study sites in the country are taking part in the Solidarity trial of therapeutics. Study sites are positioned in the National Capital Region, Baguio City, Batangas, Cebu, and Davao. Meanwhile, according to Undersecretary Vergere, one of the new treatments that will be used in WHO Solidarity trial is the chemotherapeutic drug alcalabrutinib.
About 2 weeks ago, dinagdag na po ng WHO yung gamot na acalabrutinib. This is a chemotherapeutic regimen na isa na po siya na idadagdag natin dito sa treatment arm, no, ng WHO Solidarity Trial for Drugs. So tama po yung sinasabi ng WHO, they are still trying to explore kung ano po yung iba pang mga antiviral drugs na pwede nating isama kung sakasakaling ang talagang magsa-stop na yung iba pang treatment arms natin dito sa WHO Solidarity Trial.
On Monday, the DOH will release an update on the initial results of the Solidarity trial of therapeutics in the Philippines and in other participating countries. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
PhilHealth is working on settling its almost 1 billion peso balance with the Philippine Red Cross, who has stopped accepting specimens for COVID-19 testing from the state health insurer. Ray Pelayo tells us why.
The Philippine Health Insurance Corporation assures the public that COVID-19 tests under the state insurer's package will not be affected by the latest decision of the Philippine Red Cross or PRC to stop accepting specimens from the agency. PhilHealth spokesperson Ray Balenya said there are 105 PhilHealth accredited laboratories around the country that will accommodate COVID-19 tests the PRC used to conduct. Specimens from returning overseas Filipino workers and frontliners will be tested in these facilities.
Nakahanda po itong mga partners namin ito na tumanggap ng mga specimen at yung kanilang gagawing testing covered po yan ng PhilHealth, so wala rin pong babayaran yung mga kababayan natin.
PhilHealth is coordinating with various government agencies to settle their payables.
patuloy po ang aming coordination, hindi lang po sa Philippine Red Cross, kundi syempre sa mga relevant authorities and government agencies. Naghihintay na lamang po kami ng kanila pong magiging komento para makapag-proceed na po tayo. Babayaran po natin, yan pong ating pong balanse sa Red Cross.
The PRC will continue to accept specimens from the private sector and local government units with no arrears. The Philippine Red Cross has so far processed about 1 million tests on specimens endorsed by PhilHealth, equivalent to 25% of the total individuals tested in the country. PhilHealth has paid 1.6 billion pesos to the PRC for around 433,000 tests. Ray Pelayo, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Although the pilot use of antigen test kits in Baguio City is not yet completed, the DOH has included this method of testing for coronavirus in the Omnibus Guidelines for finding COVID-19 cases. Aiko Miguel reports why.
The Department of Health, together with COVID-19 Technical Advisory Group and other experts, have issued the Omnibus Guidelines on prevention, detection, isolation, treatment, and reintegration strategies for COVID-19. The Omnibus Guidelines details which COVID-19 testing methods must be used on passengers arriving from abroad, travelers going overseas, diplomats, international tourists, domestic tourists, as well as vacationers.
These Omnibus Guidelines would include a comprehensive at saka consolidated na po yung mga guidelines natin, and we have updated some of the protocols that we have for these different strategies for the response for COVID.
Last month, the World Health Organization suggested that rapid antigen testing can't be used to screen all domestic air passengers. But the UN agency also set conditions that the Interagency Task Force allow the pilot use of rapid antigen testing in Baguio City. One of the conditions is to only use the rapid antigen testing for individuals who are sick and has a viral load. When a result from a rapid antigen test kit appears to be positive for COVID-19, an RT-PCR testing is no longer required to confirm the result. Also, according to Undersecretary Vergere, although the pilot use of antigen testing is not yet completed in Baguio City, they have already included its use in the Omnibus Guidelines.
Yung tungkol sa travelers, sa travel bubble nila, meron pa lang silang 200 na travelers na natetest at nagagawa ng analysis. Pero it is not yet sufficient for a sample size. Kasi ang ating sample size na nakalagay dun sa protocol ng study is almost 1,000. I think it's 956. Kaya hindi pa conclusive, hindi pa sufficient ang sample para makapagsabi tayo na ito na talaga yung resulta. At yung gamit ng antigen test, inalign muna natin sa HTAC recommendations and WHO recommendations, at kapag lumabas na yung kompletong resulta galing sa Baguio, diyan natin i-revise yung Omnibus Guidelines kung sakaling makita na pwede pang gamitin sa ibang sektor ng ating society.
Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Meanwhile, the country's Department of Health says that more than 3,000 new cases were reported today, raising the total confirmed cases of coronavirus infection in the Philippines to 351,750. That's the 20th most caseload globally, next to Germany's more than 352,000 confirmed cases. The National Capital Region logged 1,003 additional cases today. That's the most among regions and provinces. The total active cases in the country increased from yesterday. Now it's 50,354. Of that number, 84.7% are in mild condition, while 10.8% are asymptomatic. We have lost 34 more patients. But through our fervent prayers, medical interventions, and sacrifices of our medical frontliners, 786 more people have won their battle against the invisible enemy. That brings the total recoveries nationwide to 294,865. That's the 17th highest number of recovered patients around the world. Thanks be to God.
Let's now take a closer look at the updated count of coronavirus cases around the world. The COVID-19 pandemic has now reached a total of more than 38.95 million confirmed cases in 188 countries, regions, and sovereignties. That's after more than 225,000 new cases were reported across various countries since yesterday. The fast-spreading disease has claimed close to 1.1 million lives as more than 4,000 patients died from the infectious disease in the last 24 hours, while nearly 27 million patients across the globe have recovered from the new coronavirus infection. Thanks be to God. A Philippine senator believes the new normal in education includes the use of internet. He says the government will focus on improving the quality of education in the country. Dante Amento tells us why.
Senator Gatchalian, the chairman of the Committee on Basic Education, Arts and Culture, believes there is no better alternative way for the delivery of education than the use of internet. It offers flexibility in many aspects, especially in this time of pandemic, when physical contact with other people and going in public places are not advisable.
Ang pinaka-flexible na pamaraan ay internet, kasi internet pwedeng balikat-balikan eh. So for example, yung bata, may pasok sa umaga, kailangan niya mag-review sa hapon, pwede niyang balikan yon. Hindi niya na dapat antayin yun. Kasi sa TV, aantayin mo lumabas yun. Pero ngayon, pwede mong balikan.
The legislator stresses that the use of internet for student learning should be made mandatory. This is part of adapting to the new normal in education, not just in this time of public health crisis.
Gamitin ng internet sa pang-araw-araw na pagtuturo sa ating kabataan. Hindi man ito kaagad. Of course, Daniel, hindi lahat ng tao may kakayahan bumili ng internet o mag-internet subscription. Pero dapat gawin dahan-dahan na para yung tao ay mag-a-adjust.
Senator Gatchalian added, the country's problem in internet connectivity will be resolved as more towers are expected to be established in the next few years. The government will also focus on improving the quality of education in the country through the early preparation of curriculum, engaging in online learning, and enough funds for the education sector.
Hindi pwedeng maputol ang pag-aaral ng bata dahil naghahabol tayo. At in the next 3 years, ang focus natin ay kalidad o quality. At importante na masuportahan natin ating mga guro ng tamang suporta rin. Ito ay sa pamamagitan ng magandang pagtuturo naman pagdating sa kanilang college.
Dante Amento, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
The Labor Department today issued the guidelines on the payment of 13-month pay. Rank-and-file employees in the private sector shall be entitled to 13-month pay regardless of their position, designation, or employment status, and irrespective of the method of which their wages are paid, provided they have worked for at least 1 month during the calendar year. The 13-month pay required by law shall not be less than 1/12 of the total basic salary earned by an employee within a calendar year. The employer shall pay the 13-month pay on or before December 24, 2020. The guideline says no request or application for exemption from payment of 13-month pay or for deferment of the payment shall be accepted and allowed. Employers shall make a report of their compliance with the law to the nearest regional office not later than January 15 of next year.
Senate President Vicente Soto III has requested House Speaker Lord Alan J. Velasco to transmit the 2021 General Appropriations Bill on October 28. This was after Senator Soto revealed during last night's session that the House will submit the proposed 2021 national budget on November 5, which is no different from the proposal of former House Speaker Alan Peter Cayetano.
If that's the case, they will still be delayed.
According to Soto, Velasco has promised their best effort to facilitate the early transmittal of the bill to the Senate. The Senate President is hoping for the House to submit the copy of the budget bill before the end of the month, as the Senate would be needing weeks to consolidate and study the measure. The House of Representatives is expected to pass the 2021 proposed budget on the third and final reading today, the last day of special session. Meanwhile, Senator Panfilo Lacson again expressed concern that if the budget bill gets transmitted to the Senate in November, there is no assurance that they can pass it on time, which would result to a re-enacted budget. According to Lacson, the delay is unacceptable and also difficult to understand unless there are plans to insert amendments after the third reading. The senator further reminded the House leaders that such act violates the Constitution. Article 6, Section 26 of the Constitution states that no amendment shall be allowed upon the last reading of any bill. Senate Committee on Finance Chair Sonny Angara said they are looking for ways to shorten the process to ensure the timely passage of the budget. He added that Speaker Velasco and House Appropriations Chair Eric Yap have committed to send the copies of the budget bill on the last week of the month. The House of Representatives has finally approved on third and final reading House Bill 7727 or the 2021 General Appropriations Bill. Vincent Arboleda will join us tonight for this report live. Yes, Vincent?
Arlene, following the deadline set by President Rodrigo Duterte and as earlier pronounced by several lawmakers, House Bill 7727 or the 4.5 trillion pesos proposed national budget has finally been approved on third and final reading in the House of Representatives. Through nominal voting, 257 members of the lower house of Congress gave their affirmative votes. 6 lawmakers voted negative while none abstained. The lower house of Congress also formed a small group to tackle all individual amendments from lawmakers. A deadline was also set for the submission of individual amendments on Monday, October 19, 2020. Earlier, Appropriations Chair Eric Yap also committed to pass to the Senate a copy of the 2021 national budget by October 28. According to Yap, although they won't be able to give a hard copy of the General Appropriations Bill or GAB, they may be able to submit a print copy, one that is similar to what they will submit to the National Printing Office. Harleen, with this development, Yap says that there will be no reasons that the budget for the fiscal year 2021 will be delayed nor reenacted. Back to you, Harleen.
Thank you so much, Vincent Arboleda, reporting live from Quezon City.
The House of Representatives has passed on second reading House Bill 7884, which gives emergency powers to President Rodrigo Duterte to fight red tape. After the Committee of the Whole approved the proposal, it was immediately subjected viva voce voting and approved on second reading. Under the said bill, the President will be given authority to shorten the time or days of processing or suspend the requirements for national and local permits, licenses, and certifications to expedite the release of these documents during the time of national emergency, just like the COVID-19 pandemic.
Public utility bus passengers complain of the new bus rerouting scheme for routes toward EDSA Quezon Avenue. The Metropolitan Manila Development Authority, however, appeals for patience to those affected by the bus rerouting scheme. Asher Kadapan Jr. tells us why live in Quezon City. Yes, Asher?
Arlene, it has been about a week since the bus routes on EDSA Quezon Avenue has been rerouted, designating the passengers loading and unloading area on BIR Road in Quezon City. But since the bus stop was transferred from EDSA Centris, public commuters affected by the new bus rerouting scheme have been complaining about the inconveniences they experience. Passengers, especially senior citizens, expressed grief in walking about half a kilometer between EDSA and BIR Road with the new bus route. The narrow sidewalk along BIR Road serving for the bus stop also becomes congested with passengers and some vendors in the area, adding risk against COVID-19 transmission. Here are some of passengers we spoke with today who expressed their complaints.
Yung pagpipilahin dito mga tao, palalakarin galing doon. Dapat yun, gawin nyo yun para coming from there, maglakad kayo kung gaano kalayo. Tapos nagkukumpulan ng mga tao dito. Hindi nag-iisip.
Po, napakahirap, hindi mo alam kung saan ka sasakay, bababa. Kanina pa ako.
The Metropolitan Manila Development Authority has already set up a tent to temporarily provide shed to passengers against downpour. Personnel from the MMDA are also manning the area, although they are unable to fully control the influx of passengers, especially during rush hour. Here's what one of the MMDA personnel designated in the area can say about the situation in the said bus stop.
Yung sidewalk makipot, yung daanan ng tao, saka yung mga nagtitinda ron, nakaka-obstruct din sila.
Arlene, the MMDA asks the public to give the agency time to resolve the matter accordingly. Arlene?
Asher, just to clarify, why is the MMDA handling the concern about the bus rerouting instead of the Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board, or LTFRB?
Arlene, the Department of Transportation explains that the MMDA prohibits the buses to load and unload along EDSA and reroutes the buses to load and unload along BIR Road instead. Since the issue involves more about the traffic management scheme, it is within the primary mandate of the MMDA. But since it also involves changing of routes, MMDA should coordinate with the LTFRB. The MMDA also explained that a technical working group, which includes MMDA and LTFRB, will discuss the appropriate resolution for the passengers' complaints. The MMDA said that they may also have the Department of Public Works and Highways to join the group for possible infrastructure for the convenience of public commuters, like building of waiting shed, elevated pathways, among others. Harleen?
Thank you so much, Asher Gadapan Jr. reporting live from Quezon City. Now, here's a glimpse of what's the weather like in parts of the country. The southwest monsoon, or hanging habagat, is affecting parts of the country. State Weather Bureau Pagasa says this will bring cloudy skies with scattered rain showers and thunderstorms over Mimaropa, Western Visayas, Northern Mindanao, Zamboanga Peninsula, and the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region and Muslim Mindanao, or BARM. Meanwhile, Ilocos Region, Cagayan Valley, Cordillera Administrative Region, and Central Luzon will experience cloudy skies with isolated light rains due to northeasterly surface wind flow, while Metro Manila and the rest of the country will experience partly cloudy to cloudy skies with isolated rain showers due to localized thunderstorms. Possible flash floods or landslides may occur during severe thunderstorms. No tropical cyclone advisory is issued.
The Energy Department assures that the resumption of the oil exploration in the West Philippine Sea will not affect the ties between the Philippines and China. Joan Nano will tell us why.
After 5 years of suspending oil exploration in some portions of the West Philippine Sea, President Rodrigo Duterte approves the recommendation of the Department of Energy to lift the moratorium and resume oil exploration in the disputed territory. The DOE will be issuing a resume to work notice to the service contractors working in those areas covered by the Philippines Exclusive Economic Zone, or EEZ. According to Energy Secretary Alfonso Cusi, the lifting of the moratorium will help the country to have additional gas resources and assure energy security. Among the benefit of this development is additional natural gas reserve for Malampaya.
It gives us hope to the Filipino people that eventually we will have that energy independence and the energy security and a more affordable energy.
The oil exploration is also expected to attract more foreign investors and create more jobs for Filipinos. The DOE is confident the oil exploration will not affect the bilateral ties between the Philippines and China.
It's done in good faith because alam naman natin na meron tayong MOU na pinirmahan together with China, no? So saying that it is in good faith because it does not affect that MOU. No, it does not stop that does not stop the joint development activities that we might arrive at with China.
In 2015, the government issued a moratorium on oil exploration in the West Philippine Sea due to territorial disputes. Joanano, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Senate Committee on Agriculture has approved the use of excess rice tariff revenues collected by the Bureau of Customs for cash assistance to farmers. Several senators supported the joint resolution number 12, which seeks to authorize the use of tariff collection surplus of the BOC from rice imports for next year's budget in accordance with the rice tariffication law. According to Committee on Agriculture Chair Senator Cynthia Villar, from January to September of this year, the BOC has 3.26 billion pesos in excess of tariff revenues. Agriculture Secretary William Dar said this will be distributed to 1.1 million farmers who are farming 1 hectare of land and below. Senator Kiko Pangilinan says the department should prioritize farmers who have yet to receive any cash assistance from the government. Meanwhile, the Agriculture Department is set to ban farmers' cooperatives from importing rice in order to avoid being abused by some rice traders to smuggle rice and evade tariff laws.
And for the news abroad, here's Maria Latoza live from Perth, Australia.
William, Australian politicians across all levels of government in Australia face an increasing attention from the nation's domestic intelligence agency due to attempts of foreign spies to secretly cultivate politicians based on ASIO's annual report. A warning has been delivered that almost every sector of Australian society is a potential target of foreign interference, and the threat manifests itself in different but equally unacceptable way. According to ASIO Director General Mike Burgess, during the past 12 months, ASIO has stepped up its investigations into attempts to secretly co-opt current and future Australian politicians. He also added that in all states and territories, at every level of government, intelligence services are seeking to cultivate politicians who will advance their interests of the foreign country. It is feared that local council politicians are of the most particular interests to these foreign agents, as they often rise to more senior ranks in state and federal governments, according to national security figures. Mr. Burgess stated that it would be uncomfortable if ever ASIO was asked to undertake background checks on members of the parliament, even though the concerns regarding foreign actors targeting politicians are increasing. He fears that at some point, ASIO would be deemed as an agency that just stacks the deck with people they prefer. In a Senate committee meeting on Thursday, he said that is not a position he would want to be in because ASIO has to be independent and apolitical. ASIO also revealed that they have disrupted a foreign plot to penetrate Australia's intelligence community this year. However, they did not specify which country was involved in the foiled attempt. It was also stated in ASIO's annual report that an Australia-based foreign national was working with a team of foreign intelligence officers who were trying to recruit multiple Australian security clearance holders. Meanwhile, the Director General also gave a warning that foreign interference also involves monitoring, harassing, and intimidating of Australia's culturally diverse communities. He said that ASIO has covered many cases that involve multiple countries where Australian community members and their families have been threatened for expressing their views at odds with foreign governments' policies or values. Mr. Burgess said it is unacceptable that people in Australia are being intimidated simply for advocating democratic reforms or criticizing human rights abuses. France reimposes a state of health emergency. It also introduces curfews as the consequence of a sudden and spectacular acceleration in the spread of the coronavirus, the country's prime minister said on Thursday. According to Joel Castex, the national COVID-19 incidence rate over the past 10 days jumps from 107 to 190 cases per 100,000 population, with particularly alarming levels in some large cities. The curfew comes into force from midnight on October 17 in and around Paris and 8 metropolitan areas. These are Grenoble, Lille, Lyon, Aix-Marseille, Montpellier, Rouen, Saint-Étienne, and Toulouse. Altogether, some 19 million people are affected. Restrictions for the rest of the country have also been toughened, with all private parties, including weddings, banned in public event spaces. France ranks 9th among the countries worst hit by the pandemic. Easing up coronavirus restrictions in Europe could lead to death rates 4 to 5 times higher than those in April, occurring by January, the World Health Organization warns. More than 280,000 lives could be saved across the continent by February if 95% of people wore face masks and strict controls of social gatherings were applied, it estimates. The austere message comes from the head of WHO's Europe office, Dr. Hans Kluge, in the latest online briefing. Dr. Kluge said the restrictive measures being taken in various countries were absolutely necessary. Given the constant surge of coronavirus cases, uncompromising measures needed, warning that even more drastic steps could be taken if the pandemic does not recede. He called for countries to be uncompromising in their attempts to control the virus. COVID-19 being spread mostly in homes, indoor spaces, and communities who are failing to comply with protection measures, he added. He further said the evolving epidemic in Europe raises great concern, but we should not hold back with relatively smaller actions in order to avoid the same very painful, damaging actions we saw in the first peak. Australia Prime Minister Scott Morrison negotiates a deal with Northern Territory to use its facility in Howard Springs to take an additional 5,000 Australians stranded overseas for quarantine. Early Briones from New South Wales will join us tonight for The Reason Why Live. Yes, Early.
Marielle, stranded Australians overseas will now have a higher chance to fly back home, as Prime Minister Scott Morrison continues to discuss terms with Northern Territory on how they can possibly take in around 500 returning residents at any one time, with the facility to process as many as 5,000 Australians. The quarantine facility will cost 2,500 Australian dollars for one person, or 5,000 Australian dollars for a family of 4. The agreement will extend until end of March 2021, with flexibility to extend and expand additional capacity.
This arrangement is intended to supplement the more significant arrangements that we have in continually lifting the caps at our major ports of entry into Australia, which is now, as a result of the changes we put in place at the last National Cabinet, at just over 5,500 weekly slots and weekly capacity of people coming into each of those areas and going into hotel quarantine, which means we're getting more and more and more Australians home every week.
Prime Minister Morrison also confirmed that first travellers will be those who have been deemed by Australia's Department of Foreign Affairs as vulnerable Australians, and that Australian flag carrier Qantas will support the flight out of the United Kingdom. Supported flights will also carry passengers out of India and out of South Africa, apart from the UK. The national carrier will operate 8 return services, 4 from New Delhi, 3 from London, and 1 from Johannesburg during the next 6 weeks. Additional flights to other destinations may be announced in due course. Marielle?
Earl, how many overseas stranded Australians have already returned so far, and how many are still stranded at the moment?
Marielle, 398,000 Australians have returned home since end of March this year. And actually, around 4,000 vulnerable Australians were also able to return home since they have been identified by the Department of Foreign Affairs in September. There are still 29,100 stranded Australians overseas according to the Australian government. Marielle?
Thank you so much, Early Briones, reporting live from New South Wales. Australia will fund up to 500,000 Australian dollars or 17.5 million pesos to eligible businesses in the Philippines, along with other 4 Pacific countries. To give us the details why, our fellow correspondent here in Australia, Marvy Delphine, will join us tonight live. Yes, Marvy.
Marielle, if you are an inclusive business with a commercial idea that could make a lasting social and environmental impact during this pandemic, the Australian government may provide you with up to 500,000 Australian dollars or 17.5 million pesos. But getting quick while applications are open until November 4. The flagship initiative of the Australian government, which started in 2015, named Business Partnerships Platform or BPP, is expanding beyond its initially planned geographic footprint and is now calling for proposals from the Philippines, Bangladesh, Nepal, Timor-Leste, and Tonga. The 5 chosen countries will have specific sector focuses for this new round of the program. In the Philippines, partnerships should propose to work in one of the following sectors: cybersecurity and critical infrastructure for small and medium enterprises, digital mental health services, information and communications technology, banking and telecommunications, digital skills, big data, artificial intelligence, and data analytics. Australian Ambassador to the Philippines, Steve J. Robinson, Order of the Office, said this is an exciting opportunity for businesses to partner with the Australian government to drive impact and change to help the Philippines bounce back from COVID-19. The commercial ideas we will support will create jobs, enhance gender equality, and assist economic recovery. In reviewing the applicants, team leader for BPP, Arian Gatchalian, said it will be assessed on unique risks and opportunities of the COVID-19 context. She added, in particular, how leveraging investment, networks, skills, and expertise through a cross-sector partnership approach can accelerate opportunities, add value, and address impacts arising from COVID-19. And so she encourages applicants to be bold and think creatively where the BPP can support ideas. Marielle?
Marvy, this is positive news for innovative thinkers among our fellow Filipinos and Southeast Asian neighbors to work together on developing new projects that can lead to sustainable development. Can you elaborate on what the BPP has done so far?
Marielle, according to BPP's team leader Arian Gatchalian, the first chapter of BPP delivered 33 partnerships, which reached 5.5 million people. This has also provided an estimated 51.3 million Australian dollars in additional income or increased savings. The continuing chapter of this initiative began this year until 2024. Also, a call for partnerships in Fiji and Vietnam will be launched in the coming months. Marielle?
All right, Marvy, thank you for that report live from Australia. U.S. President Donald Trump and Democratic challenger Joe Biden hold 2 separate town hall meetings after the chief executive pulled out of a virtual debate with the former vice president. One of our correspondents in the USA, Sonny Cos, will give the details why.
An almost split-screen dueling town hall meetings done by U.S. President Donald Trump in Florida and former Vice President Joe Biden in Philadelphia brought totally different answers from both candidates fielding questions. President Trump came to his town hall obviously on defensive, receiving pressing questions about his plans in U.S. healthcare now 4 years after he won presidency. Trump continued to say that his administration put those with pre-existing conditions in high regards, but still plans to terminate Obamacare to replace it with a better one. He also defended both his administration's response to the pandemic as well as his own personal actions, including the recent Rose Garden event in the White House where only a few guests wore masks, which brought about several attendees becoming COVID-19 positive. Trump said he has heard different stories about the efficacy of masks, even though several health experts, including the administration, said that this could be a key part in slowing down the spread of the virus. The former vice president, on the other hand, sought to put the administration's pandemic handling front and center, while blaming Trump and the Republicans for downplaying the pandemic, which has killed more than 250,000 Americans. Biden went further in answering the questions about packing the judiciary, saying that he will wait until after the result of the confirmation of the U.S. Senate for a new justice in the Supreme Court, and made clear that he will have a position before the election and that he is not a fan of packing the U.S. Supreme Court. He also said that he is ready to be in the next debate with Trump and is also ready to take the test before the event, while the president said on his own town hall that he is not sure if he has taken a COVID-19 test before the first debate started. Sanacos, UNTV News and Rescue, USA. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
And those are the reasons behind the news here in Australia and in other parts of the globe. Back to you, William.
Thank you, Maria Latosa, reporting live from Perth, Australia.
Music lovers should watch out for the virtual concert of the Wishfuls this coming October 25. Mirasola Bogadil will tell us why.
Empowering OPMs. This is the theme of the upcoming virtual concert of DMPI Talent's all-female ensemble, The Wishfuls. After months of isolation brought about by the coronavirus pandemic, Ace Bartolome, Louie Ancolala, Princess Sevillena, Carmela Ariola, Kimberly Baluzo, and Rhea Basco will once again perform on stage this month for the Wishfuls OPM Live virtual concert. This musical party aims to help invigorate original Filipino music, or OPM, and the Philippine music industry, which is one of the sectors most affected by the pandemic. The Wishfuls say they are excited to sing their hearts out for their fans.
I feel so happy and excited and so alive kasi for how many months na nasa bahay lang, kausap ko camera, yung makapag-perform ulit as in parang live na live is something na parang magbibigay buhay sa amin ulit as an artist.
Kinakabahan ako, pero sobrang excited ko. Sobrang nakakamiss yung nasa stage ka, may kasama kang nagpa-perform. Kaya sana abangan nila yun kasi naniniwala ako na that would be one of the best concert na mapapanood nila.
Aside from it being the first time they will perform again on a proper stage, the girls said they are rigidly preparing for the virtual concert because they are collaborating with some of the industry's finest OPM stars.
Minamaster po namin yung mga gagawin namin for collab kasi ano yan since group po kami, so kailangan meron mga specific na mga parang voicing, yan, inaaral po namin lahat yan, inaaral po yung mga solo songs.
Preparing ourselves dahil medyo matagal-tagal din nakapag-perform, so we are preparing ourselves physically, mentally, or whatever it is. We are doing everything para, alam mo yun, to give a good show to you guys.
Expect nyo na lang na talagang since ang tagal namin wala sa proper stage, mas bibigay namin yung best namin and mas magiging excited kami na mag-perform at papasaya kayo kahit hindi tayo magkaharap. Kahit wala kayo sa harapan namin.
Concert King Martin Rivera.
But will you say that you love me?
Queen of Soul Jaya. OPM Diva Jessa Saragosa. Original Philippine Prince of Pop, Dingdong Abansado. Singer-songwriter Ai Sigera. Anong nangyari sa ating dalawa? Soul Siren Nina. And a lot more are up for their special numbers. The Wishfuls OPM Live will be held on the 25th of October, 7 p.m. via Communication Mobile Application Connect. For details and inquiries, please contact the numbers on your TV screen or send an email to events@bmpicorp.com. Mirasol Abogadil, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
And those are the reasons behind the news, October 16, 2020. I am Hordin Delgado.
Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. I'm Angelo Castro III.
Because we need to know, we will always ask why. I am William Theo. We serve the people. We give glory to God.